What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Weekly. I'm super excited for you guys to meet my good friend, Casey Gonzales.
Hey.
All the way out from Oklahoma. He's a OKC fucking legend. Big heavyweight in the casino gaming industry. You guys are gonna get to hear all about his story today.
Hype me up.
How you doing, brother?
Good, dog.
Good to have you on the show,
Good
my
to
man.
be on the show, dude.
How was the drive here, bro?
It was, hadn't done it in a while. I've been flying lately.
Yeah.
But, God, man, I'm visiting family and everything, but 7.5 hours, it's long.
It's rough, man. We had to do that. I think I went down there 2.5 years ago.
Yes.
And bro,
that was a good time, bro.
It was a great
That was
time,
a good
dude.
time.
I had a time of my life, bro. I think was that the first time? I think that was the first time I ever met you, bro.
Yeah?
I think that was the first time I ever met you. I remember that we walked into your apartment
Sushi
building.
bar.
Yeah, the sushi bar. You're dressed super fancy, bro. We pulled up in sweats and everything. I was like, oh shit, man, should I be like dressed differently? I think you're on the phone, bro. You're on the phone talking, getting some business stuff done, and it was crazy, bro, because the way you were talking was like super professional, bro. And then as soon as you got a phone, you're like, what's up, dog?
Everyone's real, man.
Yeah, bro.
Man,
I mean,
that was a good trip.
It was an awesome experience, bro. And again, I from that trip, I just took home and I was like, man, this guy's like fucking, he's a real deal, man.
I appreciate that.
But,
appreciate the intro too, bro.
Hey,
yeah.
Bro, we got you, man. Let's get right into it, brother. So, you've seen the show. I definitely want people to know your journey because that's kind of the toughest part and sometimes a part that goes unnoticed because, everybody sees, again, the finished product.
Sure.
But they don't see, all the hard work and the grind that you have to do to get there. So let's get into it, brother. Where are you from, my man? How did you come about?
Yeah.
What's your story?
I love the concept of the podcast. Born and raised Albuquerque, New Mexico.
The 505.
Shout out the West Mesa Mustangs. Grew up on the west side.
Did you go 4 years to West Mesa?
Yeah. So Chaparral, John Adams, West Mesa.
Damn.
Yeah, no, grew up on the west side, right by St. Joseph's Coors. Straight 505 through and through. And yeah, man, it's been a journey. I mean, where do I start? I feel like it all really started when I left high school, joined New Mexico Highlands, actually.
Oh, okay.
I got a partial football scholarship.
Oh, shit.
So went to Highlands, and I just never been good at school. Never was your top A student. For me, it was like, hey, if I'm eligible for football, I'm good.
Yeah.
And from there, things didn't go well. I had to redshirt my freshman year. I had left there. A big event happened in my life. My grandfather died. So my grandfather died. I was super close to him, raised me my whole life.
Yeah.
And for me, it was always about satisfying the family, right? What am I gonna do next?
Like trying to do good in their eyes.
Yeah, and the next kind of chapter was the Navy. This is the Navy for 4 years. That was a journey. Ultimately led me to Oklahoma. But yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, let's kind of rewind.
Okay,
we follow the little steps.
Yeah.
After high school, so you've been playing football your whole life.
Yep.
And so you get a scholarship to Highlands. Did you have a plan in terms of what you wanted to do, or was it more of just kind of like, I'm gonna play football and whatever happens after that happens?
That was it. It was like, damn, this is a blessing. You know what I mean? I'm actually gonna go to college. I'm making the mom proud. I'm making the fam proud.
Yeah.
And it was no plan. It was like, so I graduated at 17, turned 18 in the summer after senior year.
So you're youngin', bro.
Young. Yeah, I was really young. And I stayed at Highlands for a total of a semester and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, and then from there it was like, school wasn't panning out. I lost the New Mexico lottery scholarship. I lost the Highland scholarship, and it was like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah. What's the next step? Damn, bro. So then you chose to go into the Navy. Was it one of those things that was gonna be like sort of like a life-changing kind of event for you, or was it more just like, I have nothing else to do, like might as well join the armed forces?
So I kind of discovered this way of thinking later on But ultimately, I feel like I've always kind of been aligned in that way.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why I always promote MacTub. You know, it's like my IG handle. It's the company I created.
It's not MacTube?
MacTub or MacTube in Paul Cleo. Shout out Paul Cleo, the alchemist. That's where I got it from.
I only know that because I listened to your last podcast.
Yeah. Beads and Feathers.
Yeah.
My boy Colin Price,
Shout
Minnesota. Beads and Feathers.
It was an awesome podcast, and I listened to that, and I was like, MacTube? I always thought it was MacTub, bro. That's why I was so confused. Man.
Yeah.
My whole life changed in front of my eyes, bro.
Yeah. So the concept really is finding your good omens and kind of finding that kind of sign of where I should go. You know, we're always faced with the questions of like, what's next? What do I do? Give me the guidance. You know. Well, I was in a Hooters one day.
Okay.
And
that's a good spot to be.
And I was in a Hooters, and I was not legal to drink, and I was having a beer at the bar, and I was 18 years old, and a guy walked up to me dressed full Navy outfit, spiff guy. His last name was Gonzales, had the tag on his shirt.
Oh, okay,
so we shared the last name, right? And I was like, this guy's cool. So he's talking to me at the bar, asking me about myself. For me, I'm super honest, so I kind of felt the synergy, and it was like, how old are you, man? And I'm like, man, I don't have a plan. Like, I'm 18, actually not supposed to be in here. I ain't gonna tell anybody. Super cool dude, right? Telling me about all the places he had joined and he had been in the military, had traveled to in the Navy. And so he said, why don't you come over and just check out the recruitment office? Yeah. For me, I'm like, man, maybe it's a sign. Gonzales, super cool dude. Like, I love everything he's saying. He's been to Brazil, all these places. So I go, long story short, I take the ASVAB, do great on it.
Yeah.
He gives me all these jobs. He says, all right, you qualify for X, Y, Z, and you can leave. If you choose this job, you leave in 6 months, this job, 8 months. I picked one, right? You say you leave in 6 months. So you go part of a DEP program, and in DEP, 6 months later you leave, and I'm like, man, I'll just give you my personality, man, and Chief, I'm not gonna leave in 6 months. I'm gonna change my mind. He's like, well, I have one other option for you. That option is you could join undesignated, meaning you have no job. So when you get to the Navy, you then find a job, and you pick one that you like, right? So you kind of sold it a little bit.
So more like freelancing your way.
Kind of freelancing your way, but you leave in 2 weeks. Shit. So I said, I'm in. So I went home, told my mom I'm leaving in 2 weeks. I actually had two of my best buddies ready to go. And fortunately, they ended up backing out at the end.
Oh, no way.
And we were going to be on the buddy system. It was going to be a cool thing. And I ended up leaving in 2 weeks. I got to Chicago, and I was like, wow, the fuck?
Yeah.
But through the Navy itself, it was a total journey. I learned about myself. I traveled to Barcelona, Rota, Mombasa, Dubai.
Shit.
And I seen all these places, learned a lot about myself. And I learned a lot about, I think separating yourself from home and where you're from really helps you grow.
It kind of, it gives you that feeling of, I don't even know how to explain it, bro. Just because, so when I left I kind of had the same story. I went at 15, I left here and went to Mexico by myself to play professional soccer,
Sweet.
And when I came back, I just had this whole new sort of viewpoint of my family, the city. Like it just changed. It changes you in a certain way,
For
to
sure.
where you're you learn to appreciate stuff so much more.
I think you learn to appreciate time. When you have them every day at your back door, but you're gone for 6 months all of a sudden, when you come back, you're like, the rejoice is just so greater. And the time you spend together is so meaningful that you realize, man, when I was here for months, and I'd visit, 2-3 times a
Yeah,
month.
you take that shit for granted,
Yeah.
I agree. So you get into the Navy. How was your sort of your mental state, bro? You've been around your family the whole, your whole life. So
Good question.
2 weeks, you kind of just take off, bro. How was your mental state?
Great question. It was tested for sure. Within the first year, it was tested in the fact of man, I know what's important to me now, and it's family, and it's, did I make the right choice?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the day that, and this was a huge lesson that I took forward throughout my life.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been great every time I followed this kind of principle I placed in my life. Never be on the fence, right? You're gonna go in or you're gonna be out. And the minute you play on the fence and you're undecisive is the minute you end up with regret. And you need to go all in on one. So I said, you know what? I signed a 4-year contract. I committed this to the government. I'm gonna stick it through. And from there, ultimately I ended up becoming a rescue swimmer. Served on 2 boats, had 2 Navy accommodation medals. I got friends that I'm gonna have for the rest of my life that I love, and it was the camaraderie was great. And again, I just learned so much about myself. I started to gain confidence. I was never on the swim team in high school. I was never, and I met kind of a mentor, and I beat him in a run that you do kind of every 90 days. If you're in the military, you know, every 90 days you kind of test yourself. And you do it with your squad, your squadron.
Yeah.
And so I beat the rescue swimmer that's currently on the boat in a run. He says, "Hey Gonzo," they all call me Gonzo in the military, Gonzales. He said, "Hey Gonzo," he said, "You ever think about swimming?" I said, "Man, what you do, you know, I see you walk around the boat in your gear." He's like, "Well, I'm leaving the boat, and I recommended to your LPO you come swim with me and train at the center and qualify for the test."
Oh, wow.
So I did it. I pushed myself, but again, it was those experiences. Ultimately, you know, the end. But it was as you get those little wins in life, as I've seen you in your journey, and you start to get those little wins,
you get more confidence.
You get confidence, and you continue to say, you know what, maybe anything is possible.
Yeah. I mean, you start kind of, because the whole thing is when you start something new, bro. Like your confidence is 0. Because you don't know if it's gonna work or if it's not. You know, you kind of go in there kind of blindsided in a way, you know, to where you're like, fuck, I don't know if this is gonna work. But then you do it, and you're like, fuck, this is working, you know.
Right.
So you kind of get that extra thing, and every single time now when something new pops up like that, guess what? Your confidence is now from 0 gone to 70.
Yeah.
So you actually thrive a little bit more, you know.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And then let's get back to your story, brother. So you go into the Navy, you join the swim team. Let's fast track maybe through your, or towards the end of your Navy career. You knew it was going to start, coming to an end. What was your plan then, or what was kind of going through your mind at that point?
So the last 6 months, I became the rebel.
Yeah.
So rebel in a sense that I was one that was adamant that my journey was complete in the Navy, and that I needed to get out and figure out what that other piece was. And honestly, it was just human nature to say, if I get out and I need to come back, the Navy's gonna want me back.
Yeah.
So why not go out there and risk it? Well, knowing me and knowing the way I like to communicate with my people,
absolutely,
I'm encouraging all the young sailors to do the same. Because guys, anything is possible out there. You know, what you hear a lot of times when you're in government is there's no jobs out there. The economy's bad. And at the time, they were right. It was 2008, 2009. The economy just crashed. Just got out of a little bit of a small recession. So there was some truth to that. But for me, I started to kind of demonstrate that. And the older officers and chiefs that were in the Navy started to say, okay, Gonzo's a bad apple. He's turning sailors, because their job is retention in some way.
Yeah, I mean, they have
the government spent so much money on you in boot camp and growing you as a sailor that they want to retain you, just like you want to retain employment at the political board.
My good employees, you want to keep them as much as you can, you know.
So that there was some upper chain of command that I wish we were still great friends today, but it was kind of maybe later on in life. But I tell you what, I made friends that I'll keep for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so there, I decided to get out, and I moved to Albuquerque to utilize the GI Bill. Okay. So I'm gonna give that school thing another shot.
Now, what is the GI Bill for those of us that have like no fucking clue what that is, bro? I mean,
right. So the GI Bill is kind of like this post-military fund that is provided to veterans for college.
Okay.
So you get complete college paid for. You get basic housing allowance. So whatever state you live in, they kind of look at what the means is for cost of living, and they provide you that to get an apartment and really go through school in an easy way. 9/11, post 9/11 GI Bill, Montgomery GI Bill is great, and that's a huge benefit. of going to the military. And I encourage so many young kids, without a plan in college, why not? Go see the world, go travel a little bit.
Yeah, you can kind of travel, in a sense, not for free, but I mean, you get to see...
You get exposure, and you get away, like we said, away from home, and you come back, and honestly, I don't know about anybody else that went to college, and some are already at 18, I was 23, and I was like, okay, let me try it again.
Yeah. So it was kind of like that second coming.
Yes.
That second coming that you're like, was it... So did you want to go back to school though? Was that kind of like on your mind, or was it more of just? Like,
I feel like that was the next step to kind of get myself on my feet and use the GI Bill to my advantage, in a sense that I established my own place as soon as I get back home. For me, I left my mom at 18. I'm like, I ain't moving back to my mom's house.
No,
it's hard, a pride thing, right?
It's hard,
and it should be that way. I mean, if you need to, you need to. So, but I used the GI Bill as a basis to establish a ground, and I went to school for business. And I think throughout, I only ended up attending for a year in Albuquerque, and I got offered an internship to Oklahoma, what ultimately made me move out there.
Yeah.
But through that year in business and taking kind of the undergraduate classes, I started to feel that I don't like school. Why am I not good at it? I think I need this to become this, which is far beyond the truth, but it's what we grew up as.
No, I mean,
you gotta go to college, you gotta be successful through college, and you gotta have, and I think our parents only really knew what they could offer us. They only knew the advice that they knew, and it was safe. And they want what's best for you because they love you.
And in a sense, college is the safe way. You graduate high school, you go to college, you get your degree, and then you're supposed to have a steady job.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But I started to realize, and for me, I am a doctorate at YouTube University. YouTube University got me a long way.
It's funny you say that, bro, because in the last probably about like 8 months, I really learned that YouTube University can teach you anything, bro. It was one of the guys that does our bars at the Paleta Bar.
Okay.
He was like, oh man, if you ever need anything, just go on YouTube, like it's called YouTube University, It's like, oh shit, I never thought about YouTube that way, I was just more like, oh, I'll watch music videos and other shit. But now it's like, dude, type in anything on YouTube, bro. Like, doesn't matter what it is, and it'll teach you. It'll teach you a lot.
100%.
So fuck school, YouTube University. That's where it's at. But so okay, so we're going from there. So you learn that you don't like school, but do you want to do the business thing? Is that sort of what kept you in it?
So again, so at this point, exactly where I'm at, back to MacTub, right? Or Mac2.
Yeah.
A good omen kind of came about. I've had an individual in my life since birth. He's been a part of our family. I consider him an uncle. He's had great success in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so I think we're at like a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, and he approaches me and says, Case, well, what do you like to do? We're on the concept of what's next after school. Or what do you like to do? I said, Roll. I said, I like to deal with people. I feel like I'm a good communicator.
Yeah.
He said, Case, and there's a food, hospitality and food beverage business that he had out there. He said, I think you remind me of one of my managers, Brian. He offered me an internship for the summer. And YouTube University, prior to that I had been following, I followed one of the main guys was Tony Robbins at the time. Okay. And one of the big concepts in my life, which I still believe to this day, is you are the means of your 5 best friends.
I agree.
And if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I started to feel like I need to expand my circle. I need to see what else is out there from a business standpoint. The Navy gave me a whole new journey, and for me, at that point, it was easy to leave New Mexico. I had already done it. I took the big leap. So I took the internship, went out there. Long story short, that internship ended up leading to me saying, you know what? I'm going to stay out in Oklahoma, and I'm going to make this a home. And then the gaming industry was introduced to me.
Okay.
And gaming by slot machines, tribal casinos. Brian knows.
Yeah. So he's just, recap a little bit for the people. So now you're, right now in the future, you're already have been in the gaming company how many years?
So I've been in the gaming industry going on 8, been in 7.
7.
And I've owned my own gaming company since 2016.
Awesome.
So 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's right when I met you is when you had the Dynamic Gaming Company. But so you're an intern at the moment.
Yeah.
At a gaming company by the name of
Gaming Capital Group.
Okay.
Gaming Capital Group out of Oklahoma, big company, and through them, you know, before that point, I was also introduced and blessed by the fact that Roland, which is a huge mentor to mine. I mean, I if I could be half that guy, it'd be a blessing. He's the one that offered me the internship. So through Roland's been in Oklahoma since '96. You know, he's made tons of relationships with a lot of tribal entities, the Chickasaw Nation, the Choctaw Nation. Well, I got exposure to his network.
Okay.
And by that exposure, I started to say, man, this is that different room I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And for me, growing up in Albuquerque, I never met a millionaire. I mean, the only millionaires I knew was the NBA players on TV, the NFL players, the FIFA players.
Yeah, the guys you grew up like
watching on TV.
You know,
and meeting them and his network and being a natural competitive mindset.
Yeah.
I started to say, well, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's in gaming. Well, I could figure that out. And knowing it's not that easy, but having the will and the thought process, and it was all the experience of meeting these folks.
Yeah.
So through that, I owe Roland the world. And through that, I've got to meet other mentors and grow close to them and learn how they think. And now the 5 friends have changed a bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it was a good experience as far as just the network. And then gaming, you know, for me, all my friends will tell you in Albuquerque, when there's nothing to do on a Saturday night and we all want to get ahead a little bit, we go to Sandia.
Go to
go to Route 66. And for me, man, I've always been one that's, why not risk it all?
Yeah. And that's actually, before I met you, that was one of the things on my drive up there that I believe 2 was telling me. It's like, oh, dude, as soon as you meet Casey, man, he's gonna be the guy to, you know, do whatever, he'll risk everything. And I was like, oh shit. And then I met you, and I was like, oh yeah, that's literally the description right there. You know what I mean? It was just not a bad thing, not a bad thing at all.
No, I think it's only a bad thing when you set up, if you set up your life in a way where you want to follow those things and do that. Well, the only obligation I got is to myself.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, I mean, we all grew up on ramen noodles. I don't know about you guys, but Vienna sausages. This is before I learned about processed meat, bologna. I mean, you name it.
Bologna
so for
sandwiches.
me, with no obligations and nothing like that, I was able to take that risk and not feel fearful that I was gonna let anybody else down because it was just me.
But in a sense that, I mean, you know, just subconsciously, I'm sure that kind of positively, that I can't even say the word, positively affected you in a way to where you got that entrepreneurial mindset of fucking winning because I'm winning, you know, like I'm gonna risk it all, and if I win, I win, and if I lose, it's my own loss. Nobody else is involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
That's
for
awesome,
sure,
bro.
For sure.
So talk about just sort of, you know, the internship part. So you're working for the gaming company.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in your career there did you figure out that was something that you might be interested in making a business of?
So I've always been fascinated in the fact that owning your own business is personal and time freedom, and hopefully in the end game financial freedom.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to own my own business, but I knew I needed to understand what the industry was. And I started to look at Gaming Capital Group, which they are. They are one of a kind. They're the first company that's ever offered a model of such, and we can get into that.
Yeah.
That they do for the gaming industry. So for me, I'm like, I'm at an innovative company.
Yeah.
I'm in this industry. It's right up my alley.
Yeah.
I love everything about it. And I just knew that I needed to learn it first. So I took baby steps. I got a couple promotions within the company. And it actually wasn't until probably it was 3.5 years in, I started to feel like I needed something. Like it was stopping. And for me, home's always a big part of it. I'm here for Thanksgiving. That's why I'm here. I'm here for Christmas. So for me, it's like, if things were gonna work out in Oklahoma and I wasn't gonna bet it all and win it all, well then why not be home?
Yeah.
Why not pick something that, because success isn't money, people. Success is not money. It's how many smiles you do a day. It's who loves you. That's the people around you, and that's real.
And I think that's why so many people get everything wrong, bro. Is like,
yes, they do.
You get so caught up in chasing the money, bro, that you forget
100%.
about everything else behind you. You know, like you still have family to talk to every single day. You still have in my case a significant other that's there for you all the time.
Sure.
So if you get too busy, kind of chasing the money instead of chasing happiness,
you lose sight of what's around you, or you and everything in moderation, right? Like you have a few concepts to your life: spirituality, mind, body, spirit. Work, and then family. And you got to make time for all of them. It's a balance.
Yeah, it's a work-life balance sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. Anyway. I kind of just, I again, Mactub, right? So I meet who ends up being my business partner.
Okay.
At a Remington Park. It's a racetrack in Oklahoma City. There was a party there. Might have been the Kentucky Derby, something of some sort. But we meet, we hit it off, and he had no knowledge of the industry, but I did, and I gave him kind of my outlook and the opportunities that were available within Oklahoma that GCG, the company I was working for, weren't necessarily approaching those opportunities because they kind of had their business established at the time.
It was already going. Why fix it?
It was going. So
why fix it if it's not broken? That's
exactly. So I ended up ultimately approaching the partnership and asking them, hey, listen, you guys obviously have taught me everything, and I'm a firm believer is you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
No, absolutely.
So for me, it was important to get the blessing of the partnership and say, you know what, take this chance. And some of the best advice I ever got from Roland was, if you make a deal happen and things go bad, just see that through.
Yeah.
And it always stuck with me. And ultimately I left. I joined Dynamic Gaming. We created the name. Dynamic for me has always meant something to me, so I included that in the title. And
this is already your own company, right?
This is myself and an investor from scratch.
So I've been thinking about this all day that I wanted you to kind of talk about, because so many people don't have that clear vision of what was the conversation like because you don't have any capital, right, at all to start like a business.
Zero.
So what was that conversation that you had with, I'm sure you had a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta have a little bit of reserves, but but no major capital to invest. No.
So what was that conversation like with the person that ultimately took that chance with you?
So I still remember it to this day. His girlfriend and himself. His girlfriend's a chef. So she cooks us dinner. We sit at his table.
Awesome.
And at this time, I had just got a 6-figure promotion with Gaming Capital Group. It's my 4-year, 10-year. I've been crushing it. And I just got offered, a great salary. And I'm explaining this to my potential partner.
Yeah.
And I tell him, I say, but I've always been a bettor. And I've always been a gambler. And I've been thinking about this. And why not gamble on myself?
Yeah.
And so ultimately he kind of agreed. He said the same thing, and we said, you know what? You give me the sweat equity and the knowledge of the business, and I will give you 50%, and I will back it the whole way. And that's how we started Dynamic Gaming.
That's crazy.
So that's how I started DGS, and from there, that was a roller coaster. It was a learning experience.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen, trials and tribulations, like any other business, small business, but
how big did you end up making the company itself?
So I remember our first year we took a net loss of $180,000. Hadn't made a deal, unfortunately, not going too much into the weeds, but a deal we had kind of panned out with the company that I had left, it fell through when I left. So some partners voted on it, it fell through, and it was like, wow, what do we do next? And for me, I already took the bounce to leave. I took the leap of faith. So we had to figure it out. Then our first year, we got, I remember the first placements we got, it was probably 30 games in a slot machine. 30 games in a casino. So
now, casino gaming, you know, talking, is this anything at all, or is this like no money?
So,
like, what are usually like the bigger companies, do they do, you know, like?
So bigger companies usually, yeah, I mean, they got established footprints. They got games out there, you know, footprints the size of 15,000 games, you know, 10,000 games. Well, GCG at the time, I think, had 15,000 games on route.
So you start with 30.
I started with 30, and it quickly grew within the next 6 months to 500 games, and we had a full-blown business.
Wow.
I was growing so fast, and I knew I needed good folks. I ended up calling a good friend of mine, Obi Martinez, Obed.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Obed.
Shout out Obi. I called him. I called a buddy of mine, James Barella, both New Mexico guys, and they came out, helped me grow the business. I hired. We had about 6 techs on staff. I mean, it just took off, and it was exciting. But up until that point, I'm telling you, trials and tribulations. Until we got there.
And I'm sure after that, you know, that net loss of, you said 180, right? That first year, I'm sure your mindset was kind of like, I should just go back and go to my 6-figure job, you know, like most people would. But you decided to keep sticking through it and said, you know what? I fucking already went full in. I have to make this work, and there's no turning back.
And that's it. That's the mindset. It's the will. It's the will to say, you know what? We're gonna fail. We're gonna do things wrong, but we're gonna grow from it. Maybe a sales strategy that we thought we had was right for this casino actually ended up being different, and you may have got rejected on the first offer, but again, building those relationships, continuing to be in front of the client, and knowing that I'm in it to win it. Exactly. You're right. It was the mentality that kept that alive.
That kept you in.
For sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, just a lot of the kind of like trial and error. You know, you go back and you revisit your books and say, I fucked up in this deal. This is exactly what happened. So how do I present the deal again, but in a better form to where they're gonna like it?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So you grow the company. Now you have 500 games. What do you guys do after that? What's kind of your next steps?
So unfortunately, in all, nothing ends up being perfect. And again, firm believer in your personal legend, your omens, and some things go good and some things go bad. And ultimately, my partner and I don't feel at the time we're meant to be business partners. So we ultimately ended up finding a means of an end. So I ended up selling him half the portion of the business, and through that, ultimately a journey. But we parted ways, sold him my half of the business. It was super hard to let go, but I felt deep inside at the time, which again, another big feel.
Yeah.
I can do this on my own. Maybe I don't need anyone. And the way things kind of ended, it could discourage a person from ever being in a partnership again.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate, but ultimately I sold him my half of the business, and it was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, you have to restart, basically reset your whole outlook on everything else. For sure.
Because you're so caught into what you've been doing the last 2.5 years to get it to where it's at, and it's like, okay, this is a huge shift.
Yeah.
And just like I call it the universe, call it God. I'm not a huge religious person, but I am a believer in the fact that good things happen to good people, and karma's real. And
I agree.
For me, I knew that this is only part of the journey. When you have a plan, the plan never goes to plan. Right?
And it shouldn't.
And it always changes. And as long as you can adapt to that variable change, I mean, through the selling of the company, I think I got a undergrad in business litigation. And I think it's only going to set me up for the challenges and trials and tribulations that are ahead.
That are going to be coming ahead. So did you, in a sense though, like what was your sort of plan after that? I mean, you just built this big company. You basically, kind of gave it up in a sense, not, you personally, but you had to do it for, obvious reasons. So what was your mindset like then? Like, was it, kind of going back and redrawing everything? Did you want to even like go back into the casino company, or what were you thinking then? Or the casino industry, I should say.
First of all, the first part, I mean, it was the first 6-figure check I ever got, so I needed a break.
Yeah, that's true. You have to,
and I looked at myself and I said, Case, I looked in the mirror, and even though things went the way they were, I said, you know what? And it's important to do that. It's important to do that. Because I honestly, Brian, I didn't know. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know, what do I do? What do I go back? GCG, the company I work for? What's next? You know, do I have enough capital to put it all in and bet it all again?
Do another one.
Do it on my own? You know, so you're right. But I took a break, did a little bit of traveling, and ultimately the universe worked its way the way it does, and Gaming Capital Group made 2 huge acquisitions that probably cost them over $100 million.
Oh, wow.
And they acquired the rights to some major manufacturers in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And through that and my relationships that I've kept with them provided me opportunities. So I started consulting for them. There was some tribal relationships that I had, and I consulted, and I'm super excited with a new partnership that we've been in talks with, and the next company will be Concise Gaming. I'm super excited about it, and we'll see where it goes.
What are you going to be doing there? What's kind of your role in that partnership there?
So it's kind of funny the way the industry works. We were kind of, I'd say, friendly competitors at the time when I had Dynamic. He had a group called Integrity Group. We sold within 3 months of each other. So I think Phil, who would be the partner and who owned the other group and the entity, he's a great guy. He's got a great reputation, and he's just overall a great operator and knows that what the customer needs, and knows how to keep up the operational staff. So I kind of approached him, and GCG approached us both and said, hey, we need help growing this new acquisition throughout the state. We would like to create a preferred kind of distributor partnership with you guys.
Okay.
So Phil and I had the choice at that point to say, I can create a new brand, you can create a new brand, and we can kind of grow this separately. But in the end, would we be duplicating our operational costs, and instead of 5 years down the road when we have separate companies that we've grown, why didn't we work together? So we actually met several times, came up with an agreement, and I'll be business development. So kind of growing the contracts, finding the needs of the tribe. A lot of our business is capital outlay, capital restructure. I'm very good with slot analysis, and I've been fortunate with my mentors and teaching me kind of diving into the nitty gritty on what kind of games you need on the floor and what's the optimal floor layout.
How, just touching on your mentor base, how important is a mentor to you, bro? Like, and just any entrepreneur in general, like, what do you think, a mentor's role, does it play a big part in people that are starting out, or you really don't need a mentor? What's kind of your input on that?
It's not, I can't even say it's not a need. I'd recommend it. You gotta find somewhere or some room or some person that ultimately aligns with your vision in your life. And again, I go back to it. The beans of your 5 best friends. You're the smartest. I wanted to be the dumbest one in the room. And I was humble enough to say, I don't understand. Can you show me? And
that's where a lot of people go wrong again. Because, dude, like I see so many people struggling, bro, every single day. Just through social media, bro. They struggle and they put up this front that they're so successful and blah, blah, blah. And then you meet them in person and they tell you all the shit that's going wrong. But that one reason that they don't want to accept, they don't know it. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, you have to humble yourself down and say, I need you because I don't know this. Can you teach me? even if you're already a successful entrepreneur, who cares, bro? Like, be humble enough to fucking learn.
Be humble enough to take advice and grow. And the reason why you seek these individuals is because you want to be in that place.
Exactly.
And in order to be there, you gotta listen. Listen, you know, and that was the biggest advice Roland had given me. One of my main mentors, he'd given me the advice, and he said, Case, be a sponge. Understand gaming.
Yes.
Listen. Go to the meetings and listen. And most oftentimes I took that advice and I sat there and I listened to different arguments and whether this side had a philosophy and how they wanted to set up these bank of games, and the other side said this, and through that I ultimately learned.
That's awesome.
More.
So definitely mentors.
Mentors huge. Yeah, mentors huge. If you don't have one, you definitely need to get one.
But I listen to Gary Vee a lot, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I disagree with him about, because he doesn't believe in mentors. He's more of just kind of like, you go get it yourself. But at the same time, for those people that might be lost in a certain aspect of life, that benefits them a lot. One of the other things too, like, did you at a certain age believe that you were going to be an entrepreneur? Did you kind of always have that mindset, or did it just kind of pop out of nowhere?
Touching on your first thing with Gary Vee, going back to that, I see where he's coming from. Not everybody is as strong-willed as he is, and that's why I think you need to teach that first. And that's why I go back to saying, find out what your ideal is. You know, a big book that changed my perspective was As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Okay. And all of your thoughts, you know, we hear it in manifesting things, and it's true. And what's your ideal? Write your ideal down. What do you want people to think about you, say about you, and think long term, 20, 30 years. And through that ideal, I think you seek those individuals and you try and find them. But again, like Gary Vee says, anything's possible. I think you can do it on your own. He's a very strong-willed person.
I think it's more of a sort of like just pushing the self-motivation to a certain extent. Like me personally, I've always been, my ethic in terms of working has always been through the roof, but I just didn't know how to apply it in certain areas, like I always knew that I was going to be either independent in some sort of way. My way was going to be soccer. I wanted to be a professional soccer player, and I was going to be independent through that. But now that I'm looking back at it, and now that I'm in the position to own a business, I'm like, fuck, like shit, like I was actually like I was meant to be this, but I just needed the guidance to kind of put me in the right path, or kind of align some certain parts, push me to that next level.
Sure. And I think that was a similar story with me. I didn't grow up saying I want to own my own business or I want to be an entrepreneur. I think it found me.
Did you always have like problem with like people like bossing you around, or just like
I thought I was gonna have that problem in the military.
Yeah.
And I didn't. For me, I'm a pretty quick learner as far as understanding what system you're in.
Yeah.
And I may tiptoe that line every now and then.
Just
but
play
I
with
think once you understand the constraints of the system, as long as you're not reckless, you'll be fine.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that point, man. So right now, brother, here in the future, you're getting ready to start your next company. What's your approach now that you have all this knowledge, now that you've had this, all this experience? What's your approach now? What are the do's and don'ts in your industry right now?
The do's and don'ts in my industry. There's really none. For me, I just want to continue to grow, and I want to diversify. Absolutely. This year in my time off before I started consulting, I discovered Wall Street. I got a little bit of capital. So for me, I started to think, I'm like, well, I don't want it to sit in the checking account. Why don't I? And for me, I've always been a bettor, right? So I took some losses early on in stocks, and I continue to still invest in them. And for me, I want to get better. I want to understand more of the market and what moves it. And for me, it's planning ahead. Is there another recession coming? Can I be liquid? Does Apple drop down to $99 and you buy in?
Yeah.
Things like that. So for me, it's diversifying my knowledge. And again, I think it's simple. Instead of getting caught into the weeds of what you're doing, I I think you need to take a step back sometimes and trust that, like Joel Embiid with the 76ers, trust the process. And you really do. You have to look for those, and that's why I'm a firm believer in Maktub. It's your personal legend. It was written, and I think through your journey, you look for those omens, and and ultimately having that ideal in your head, the omens will ultimately guide you to where you need to be. And sometimes your plan changes. And for me, I created a business. I loved business. And I love the gaming industry, and I think I'll always be involved. And I love helping out tribes and giving back to the Native American community. But I think that I might jump into another industry. What's next? For me, tech's amazing. Tech is amazing, and tech's a disruptor in any industry. So figuring out different things and always on the search. I feel like you knock on 10 doors and you hope one or two open.
I agree. And just touching back, dude, on the Native American community too, bro. Now that we opened up, in Bernalillo, that's more than 80% of my, guests that come in the room is Native American people, and I've gotten to learn so much of their, sort of their culture and everything else. And it's amazing, bro.
It is, right?
You get exposed to like a whole different world, because it's just so different, bro. I mean, you've been exposed to it a little bit more because you do live in Oklahoma and you've been around all that stuff, casino. But I just opened my eyes to like you were saying, just different visions, different ideas, different stuff that you can do,
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And so the Paleta Bar, it's in Bernalillo, huh?
Yeah, we have.
So how long have you owned that, Brian?
Dude, it's only been.
How long have you been running it and opening it?
6 months, brother.
6 months?
6 months that I've been there, man, and kind of like. I'm a minority owner at the moment. I'm not ashamed to say that. Most people fucking look at me or they look at my Instagram like, oh, dude, you own the Paleta Bar. I'm like, yeah, it's a big thing, but it's also not a big thing in its sense, like, that's not my.
No one's measuring to any standard.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And again, it's a big win for me in terms of, pushing myself to the limit and just continuing to learn and trust the process, because I know, how old are you now, brother? You're
just turned 30 this year.
Yeah, 30, the big 3-0, huh?
Big 3-0.
I look at all these people around me, bro, and for the most part, I don't have friends my age, bro. You'll be surprised. I don't have any friends my age, and all my friends are 30 like yourself. Obed 26, 27, 2, same thing, 30. Deepo 31, Joel 32, bro. So it's like all these older people have been kind of in my life, and I think I'm gonna have to look into the McTub thing because I've never read that book, but I think that might be something that kind of pushes me again, because just getting those omens, bro. Like,
The Alchemist,
learning from these older people, bro. And I've never gotten along with younger people, like people my age. It's always been so different. I always feel like I can have a conversation.
Now, how do you feel about, so your first kind of introduction to business has been basically, you call it the food and beverage industry.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself branching out? Do you like the concept? Do you like the love of what you do for the Paleta Bar in a sense that you like food and beverage? Or do you love the fact that it was the opportunity and I love managing a business?
I think for me, I will definitely continue to grow in the food and beverage business because I've been around it all my life, bro.
Sure.
Like, I started off working at fucking McDonald's, bro. I was a shift manager at McDonald's. I was a shift manager at McDonald's, and kind of learned all the different things in terms of labor costs, food costs, inventory.
Absolutely.
So I think I want to build my legacy around that in a certain way. But again, I don't want to just
maybe
hold
your
myself
own concept.
Back. Yes,
maybe
that's definitely, the Paleta Bar is definitely not my. It's a brand that I stand by and I will forever
you
love.
started.
That's where I started. That's a place that kind of gave birth to Brian, the business guy.
Sure.
So I will always love them for that. But at the same time, it's not a brand that I started. And my ultimate goal is to, start my own brand, start my own thing. That's not to say though, I definitely want to branch out and do other things, just kind of like yourself. Though everybody's ultimate business goal should be an investor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You should always go from, I don't know if you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
And he talks about the 4 quadrants, of
so
of
true.
business.
Passive income.
Exactly. What better way to, make money in your sleep than investing your money? As you keep getting more income, as you keep making more money, instead of spending it, invest it so it triples, it quadruples.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I definitely want to. I want to do so many things, bro. Like we could sit here and talk about all the ideas forever, man. Because there's a lot, bro.
But that's important, bro.
There's
because like you hear in Gary Vee, and you're 23.
23, brother.
23.
So I'll be 24 in a month, bro.
You're mid-20s. Like, try it all, and I think you're crushing it, bro. You're taking opportunities, you're taking chances, you're taking risks, and as you continue to try those different things, that's where because the plan never goes to plan.
No, and
I feel like, in my own experience, it's in trying all those things and having the will to know that you want to be, I'm sure small things to you are financially free, time, providing for family.
Exactly.
So all of those things are your ideal, and you obviously have the will. I mean, I've seen you on the IG, 14-hour days, 18-hour days. So you have the will. So you take that will and you chase that ideal of what you have, and you have somewhat of a plan mapped out. You got the Paletta Bar and Bernalillo, and all of a sudden, Brian, it all goes and changes. Yep. But it's staying true to yourself, following those omens, and I truly believe good things happen to good people.
They do. No, I absolutely agree, bro. And I've been, I am a firm believer in that, and that's the reason why I kind of, can relate to you so much, because I've been the same way, bro. Like when I got offered a position as to start off at the Paletta Bar as general manager, I had only been a shift manager at McDonald's for 2 months, bro. They're like, how long you been a manager? I told them, it's been a long time. Because if I didn't tell them that, they would be like, well, let's find somebody else that could take the position. And my whole take on everything is like, I fucking learn as I go, bro. Like,
love it.
I will try my hardest. If I don't know shit about something, I will literally stay up 20 hours a day. I will work, learn what I can there, and then go back home and learn what I didn't learn that day.
That's all it takes.
You know what I mean? And it's just that will of trying to, of keep on learning,
and it's consistency.
It's
consistency, and you look back a year later and you're like, it's compound interest. It really is. And you take those days and it compounds, and then the year later you're like, man, I'm a totally different person. I'm looking forward to next year.
Exactly. And you start, again, we go back to like getting those small W's, bro. Like once you start getting those wins, you keep going, you keep growing as a person, you keep, motivating yourself even more, you find new things that you're interested in, and, everything eventually kind of wraps up and turns into being you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But let's wrap it up, brother. This is a new thing that I'm gonna try out here just with you,
love
bro.
Love the podcast. Love it. love the Paletta Bar.
Before we head out, we gotta cool things off, man. So I just feel like people need to know you in a little bit more personal level, okay? So I'm asking you 5 questions, bro.
Okay.
Favorite sport?
Favorite sport to play or to watch?
Both. Let's do both.
As of late, it's changed, and I am a huge fan to watch basketball. Love it, man. I got the Thunder. Shout out to Thunder. We lost a few key components.
The number one point guard in the league. This man, Russell Westbrook. If you ever watch this, bro, this is your number one supporter, because
shout out Brody.
When nobody else believed in you, bro, he did. So you better shout him out for that, bro.
3 years I supported Why Not. And Why Not Bowl.
I tried to change his mind and he did not. So you better pay him back someday.
And and the second to play, I'll see you guys at Johnson Field tomorrow for some turkey
yeah, tomorrow,
Thursday.
Right? Are you playing with the Lab? Is that what it's called?
We always play a pickup game at Johnson Field.
Okay.
Yeah. So football is probably my number one sport to play.
What is your second question? What is your business advice for young entrepreneurs or people that are gonna start a new business? What sort of that advice you would give them that they may not hear later on?
I think for me, it's taking out all of your insecurities, and that's hard. It's hard because doubt creeps in, insecurity creeps in, fear creeps in, and once you let that go and you start to get those small wins, and what I mean by being true to yourself and aligned in my mind is being who you are and being openly okay with that and speaking your mind and really understanding and believing that anything is possible. And when you get those small wins, it only enhances that. But, my advice is, for one, definitely find a mentor. And it depends what age you are. Entrepreneurs that, like yourself, at your age, for me, it's use that, grow with that, because you're going to experience so much through the journey of what you've kind of planned out.
Yeah.
But I always say, in order to you have a plan from A to B, and all of a sudden it changes from A to C to D to Z, and then you get to B finally. Yeah. And for me, it's have the will and the courage to never give up, and be a good person. You get what you give this world. In my mind, you really do. You give back. If you give back, you will receive. And listen to those signs. Follow your gut. And be open-minded to new opportunities. And don't be afraid to say yes.
I love that. I fucking love that. Third question, brother. What's your 5-year plan?
5-year plan?
Or even 3-year, whatever, whatever comes to mind in just the near future. What sort of, your plan for yourself?
In the near future, I'm really trying to get, obviously, this new partnership established and growing, and get to back where I was. I have all my same clients, kind of looking for opportunities to grow some of my similar clients' businesses. Ultimately, the reason why I got into business, Brian, was to hopefully one day come back to Albuquerque, and for me, I wanna provide opportunity. For me, I was always ambitious. I always had aspirations.
Yeah.
But I was susceptible to my surroundings and what was around me. So for me, those ambitions and aspirations were only enhanced by the actions of individuals around me. So I would follow those actions.
I agree.
And for me, I know wholeheartedly that there's kids out there today that are 18 years old that have that ambition and aspiration, but they don't necessarily have the opportunity. I sit on the board Big Brothers Big Sisters Oklahoma City.
I saw that.
And it's amazing to see what that program does for 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids. You have kids that one parent's incarcerated, the other parent works 2 jobs, and they get a big brother or a big sister, and all of a sudden they have ideas of going to college or ideas of playing in the NBA.
Yeah, they start thinking that's possible.
I ultimately think education is experience and reflection. So you go through an experience, whether it's, I kind of always relate to Keanu Reeves, a movie called Hardball, where he takes the kids to a major league game. And they see the game, and this is before their championship game, and they see how the professionals are playing. And again, it reminds me when I got into the room and saw these other millionaires and started to say, you know what, I can do this. And seeing those pros play and those kids, they went out there and they won the game. So for me, if I can provide experiences and opportunities back in Albuquerque eventually, that's my ultimate goal.
All right, brother. Question number 4. What would you tell your past self, your 18, 19-year-old self, looking back at where you are now? That's a good one, huh?
That's a great question. What would I tell my 18-year-old self? Get your shit together. There's a whole world out there. Go see it. Go live it. Go embrace every single part of it. There's a movie with Jim Carrey that I can relate to called Yes Man.
Okay, I have yet to watch it.
And Yes Man kind of gave the example of any opportunity that was presented to Jim Carrey in that movie, he ultimately decided to say yes. And for me, I love that because I try to apply that in my own life.
Yeah.
And whether it's a group that I don't necessarily hang out with and they invite me to a concert I'd probably never attend, usually when I say yes, I do 2 things. I go there and I say, you know what, that's not me and I'm never going back. Or 2, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
I kind of like that part of this and how they do this. And I take those pieces and I try to apply it to my life. So I used it in a form of travel. In the Navy, I got to exposure to different cultures.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, you know what? I like the way that culture does that. I like the way they do things here in Dubai. and I would take pieces of those things, and I think ultimately it was the journey of finding yourself and applying those things to your life. So I would tell my 18-year-old self, get out there and try a bunch of shit, everything you can.
That's awesome, bro. I fucking love that, man. That's literally all you gotta do. You know, you gotta reflect back and.
It's a great question.
Yeah, dude, you gotta look back at yourself and just be like, fuck.
Curious for 5.
I fucked
That should have
up.
been the last one.
You know what? I think we might have to wrap it up. That was probably my best question. I should have ended on.
And on a good note, I like it.
Let's end it on a good note, brother. Hey, man, I appreciate you, bro. This is honestly like some good ass content, bro. I appreciate you a lot. I learned definitely a lot from you as a person and also you as a businessman, bro. So I definitely appreciate you. You guys are gonna love this one, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode of Entrepreneur Weekly. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, everybody that's been helping us out. We appreciate you guys. Much love.